I look at my police departments, and I think to myself, and my fire departments and rescue fire departments, and I'm thinking, it's getting more and more expensive every year. We're the cost of personnel, cost of equipment. If I told you, take the county and divide it into 4 pieces and come up with a police program, a sheriff's program, call it what you will, how can we save money on one hand, provide the coverage that the county, the people, population want? I shouldn't be spending time having my police chief do training. We should be doing county training. Today's training day for all officers with less than a year of experience, or something like that, or today's range day, or it seems to me that there's, I think you do a great job with what you've got, and I understand, it's a tough job, but I also am cognizant of these exponential costs that just don't seem to be slowing down. It's more and more every year, and a lot of it's technology driven. So I think that I'd like to think that you're being proactive with the police chiefs in the county and saying, what can we do better? How can we combine forces? I don't want to drive around Sebago Lake. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. So a couple of things. You have 2 officers on our tactical team. It's a regional one. There's about 7 Westbrook officers, 2 Wyndham officers, 2 Gorham officers. Used to be a Falmouth officer. So we're doing some regional things there, rather than, believe it or not, in Cumberland, you could have a standoff. I don't remember any, but the reality is, we pull our resources there, and that gives them the experience to have a team and have, when we go into Cumberland, the expertise there, or Westbrook, or Falmouth, or wherever. We do that. We cover, Brunswick goes down to Harpswell periodically, but they don't want to be going down every day. And thankfully, they don't have to. Right. There are times when down at Harpswell, we try to cover it 24 hours a day, but if you look at the coverage, it's not 24 hours a day, so it may be somebody going from Baldwin down there. Brunswick may also be going down there, but when we get there, we're taking the report because it's our call.
Right.
We're responsible for it. Yeah. Your vehicle, to talk about the cruisers. We're a little different in that we have people on the tactical team that if we had like a big station like Portland, if somebody forgets something or has a crime, they just send somebody across town to Portland. We expect our people, even our deputies, to be somewhat detectives, so they carry a fingerprint kit, and they carry flotation devices because we have a lot of people drowning, or so we try to set up the vehicles based on what they need to carry, because there's no going back to a substation.
Right.
The vehicles are somewhat standardized. It's got to have a computer because everything's done on a computer now. We don't have video cameras, but some police departments have actually in-car video cameras. Like to have it because we just had an officer-involved shooting, and as I told the commissioners with the body camera is only going to get what the chest sees and not what the eyes see. And the individual that was coming at him with a gun in their hand was coming from this side, and the body camera got the butt of the gun. Great picture of the butt of the gun. Thankfully, we got audio. The car camera would have gotten a different perspective. So a lot of cars have that. We don't. You need the lights because of the visibility. There's not a lot of gloss. Quite frankly, as I was telling somebody the other day, Chevy, Ford, Dodge don't make a lot of money on police departments, even though there's a lot of police departments in the United States. Their big thing is on electric vehicles that, If you don't charge it, you're gonna run out of power before you get to the call and stuff. So they go up on their money, they go up on their costs because they're making a whole lot of money by trying to turn out a Tahoe that's a police package. Now, the good thing is, the Tahoe police package now at least comes with a wiring setup. It used to be, you know, there are feet and feet of wiring in the garage, and the guy setting it up had to run the wire. I don't see anything in the Cruiser that is not necessary. I mean, unfortunately, with the equipment we need, we're building a trap around them. That's my big concern, because if they get caught in a crash, there's no getting over the passenger seat to get out. They're pretty much got stuff around them. So it's gonna be a frustration. It's frustrating for me to even see the prices of cars.
I was just thinking that, you know, when you said they'd take the light bar off one car and put it on another car, they should come with the light bar. They should come with all the lights. They should just, you know,
I think our people would be happy with that.
yeah, I mean, all you should have to do is program your radio.
And training, I mean, we work a lot, the chiefs in my agency work a lot together. I mean, you know, Cumberland's backs up the Gray, it backs up the North Yarmouth. A lot of times they're coming over to help us, sometimes we're going over to help them. You know, we do training when we can. There's a group called District 2 Training, which is all the Cumberland County chiefs, and we work on training so that we're interacting together and making sure that if we go to a scene, Bob Vale and I know by the look what we're gonna do, even though we're not gonna say, you know, because that's the idea is, you wanna have those relationships built before the bad thing happens. And, you know, we kinda saw that in Lewiston, you know. Thankfully, the people in southern Maine, it's not so big that you don't know your partners in southern Maine. But we found out it can happen in Maine, and we gotta be ready, whether it's the equipment, whether it's the training, whether it's the staffing. And we're not anything different. So, Mr. Vale, hopefully I've answered your question. We try to standardize things. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think public safety is gonna keep crawling up because nobody wants to work nights, weekends, and holidays. The people growing up right now, that is not attractive to them at all. And quite frankly, some of us in this room, when we started, we almost did it for nothing because we believed in it. The people we're hiring now have no loyalty to the profession, to the person that hired them. And at any given time, they're going after the next best deal, and they're not thinking twice about
I know we're a long ways from county government and county police and county fire. You know, the rest of the country operates on that, and so I'm not asking you to get there today, but what I'm asking you to do is make the steps to get us there for those efficiencies. You know, I don't think I need a police chief in Cumberland, Yarmouth, Falmouth. I think I could get by with one, and a couple of lieutenants. It's a change of dynamics that it's going to be slow to come, but I need the thinking to start to begin there to justify the cost of being in business.
Cumberland has an approach, but there have been a couple of small towns with small agencies in my last 20 years that have approached me about, hey, what about doing a contract as opposed to a police department? First of all, I tell the police chief that, you know, I'm not gonna come in and suggest that Cumberland contract with us and do away with the police department. I wouldn't do that. But there, in some cases, take the town of Standish. They had their own police department at one time, and that didn't work out, and they came back. And when they came back, we had a contract, one contract, 40 hours a week. They decided to run their own police department. They tried that for 3 or 4 years. When it was abysmal failure, and then when they came back, they did 4.5 contract deputies. Standish has their own police department. It's just driving sheriff's cars. And guess what? All 8 people are out patrolling and doing criminal work, and it's leaving all the administrative, the detective to us. You know, that's the economies of scale. Some towns have a police department because they want a police department.
Keep Elizabeth. Yeah, I know.
And I'm not gonna, you know, I'll tell you the same, I mean, North Yarmouth, they sometimes kick the tires on a contract deputy, because they have some problems with traffic. When I look at the numbers, I tell them, I'll take your money, but I'm not sure you need it. And traffic's gonna happen outside of that 40 hours that you wanna hire the deputy. So you're gonna get frustrated with me because I'm taking your money and the traffic still blasts through there, you know? So again, I think an agency or a town needs to look at their calls for service and say, okay, you know, do we need this, or, you know, do we need a contract? Standish, they don't have to worry about training, we take care of it. They don't have to worry about policies, we take care of it. They don't have to worry about personnel, we take care of it. I mean, and they got 8 people working the street. You know, if you had a chief, you'd have a chief, maybe a sergeant, and 6 people out there, right? But they've got 8 people beating the roads 24/7.
You know, Bob, in the other parts of the state, there are communities that just give up their department. They don't even make a contract.
And that puts a hardship. I'll use Oxford. I mean, Dixfield did away with their police department. They didn't put a contract deputy on. So now, you know, let's say that Oxford County has 12 officers covering 16 towns. Well, Dixfield's very busy, got a lot of crime there. And guess what? They're trying to pick that up along with everything else they're doing and trying to make that work. So I hear that all the time as well. But the commissioner's right. I mean, you know, some police departments just having a hard time attracting people because, you know, why would you go to Dixfield and make $20 an hour when, you know, you can go to Falmouth or the sheriff's office or the state police and make a little more money? And they're not gonna be happy, they're gonna go to the next best thing, but the reality is, unfortunately, I think that's what we're up against now. And again, we got this schedule that nobody really, it's not glamorous, you know? And that's working against us, frankly.
I think some of those personnel issues are going to force some of our towns to take another look because, you know, we're raising the prices to attract
Yeah.
workers. And I hear, you know, Biddeford
Pricing
is
us out,
Biddeford has outpriced us on the EMT and it just,
And you know what?
it'll end at some point.
You're correct. I mean, you know, fire service, reputable, you know, but again, you know, some people like the 24 on, 24 off, and then 29 days off, you know, type thing. But it takes a certain person, you know. For some people, 8 hours, close the book, not take it, you know, not look at it until the next morning, or on Friday, close it and open it up on Monday. You know, these folks, you know, even in command, we get a bad thing on Christmas Day, we're out, you know, and there's no do-overs. And we weren't smart enough to figure that out. The younger kids are, because they're saying, you know what, I don't want to spend my time working on weekends and stuff, you know? So,
Yep.
I can't disagree with you, Mr. Dale.
Can I ask a question on,
Sure.
just going back to your, well, let me ask the question. What's the average term in a jail for Cumberland? How many days does an inmate actually spend in the jail?
It kind of bounces back and forth. When I first took over, it was like 27, now it's around 15. Average length of stay, but that's, keep in mind, that's pre-trial. You know, we have people waiting on homicide charges that have been in there for a year or so. I mean, if somebody's arrested on a homicide charge now, you can expect it's gonna be at least a year before that, you know, meets the court. And then you have the defense, the way they do business on making sure that people are sent out to Riverview to make sure there's a competency hearing so that they're competent to stand trial, and that takes time. And then the other thing that people don't realize is the inmates can hire and fire their own attorneys. So, you know, they may get to the altar of going to court, and then they fire their attorney because something happened. And guess what? Now that next attorney coming in is gonna get up to speed on it. So it may be another several months. So it's a variable game.
So when you talked about recidivism, I mean, there's really nothing that we're doing proactively to bring down that rate of coming back into, you can't in 15 days, really.
No, and you can't measure it either,
Well,
you're not
to your point
following it.
about, yeah,
you know?
you don't know where they're being incarcerated next. Which is, so it's just a holding period, and to me, the jail is just a holding tank, if you will, and hopefully stabilizing to some extent, or providing some access to services, perhaps, that particularly people with mental health or substance abuse might benefit from. So, and this is a question we asked the last time, too. You could, my counterpart over here, is very much into how do we regionalize things and how do we, you know, get the best out of the limited resources. I think personnel is going to drive that discussion faster than ever. Certainly, we, as taxpayers, we want to bring down the cost, et cetera, but if you don't have people to do these jobs, then you absolutely have to, you know, consolidate. And so the question about the jail, and I think Jim had mentioned last time that it takes longer for somebody from York County to reach our jail than it does to reach their own jail. Did I misquote you?
It's longer from the York County Courthouse to the
Courthouse.
jail than it is from the courthouse, York County Courthouse to our jail.
Right, and so I just wonder, at some point, should we not consider building, to your point about a 30-year-old building is going to need upgrades, and I don't know how old York County's is, but shouldn't we, like, be looking at regionalizing some of these assets that, or resources that, you know, are going to need a lot of capital expenditure over time? And should, is there a role for the state legislature to pay to make that happen? To make that happen in terms of funding some of this consolidation, or understanding there is a need for it? And I'm sort of looking at what's the 5-year and 10-year future of jails?
Well, you know, pre-COVID, that was, you could do 5 or 10. You know, I will say for the last 5 years, it's day by day. It's, as the major will say, being in these positions, 1 year is like a dog's life, dog's year. You know, it's like 7 years. The answer to your question is yes. We try to work with other jails to kind of regionalize some of the services. The reality is, if we take care of the Cumberland County Jail, the York County Jail is fairly new as well. We take care of the Cumberland County Jail, should never have to build another jail. Should never. I mean, the state, unfortunately, in my opinion, they don't take care of their stuff, and then they just knock it down after 30 or 60 years and build no. And so, you know, we need to take care of the jail. It might be at a certain point that if the numbers keep going up, that you have to do a regionalization or something. But every area expects a lot different things, you know? York County, just in their district attorney's office, from what I understand, is much different than Cumberland County. And, you know, as far as how they want to do things. I think the big thing that the public doesn't understand is the jail is being used for a lot more things than what it was derived for. Public safety, that means the person that's gonna go out and be killing people or raping people, and they're gonna do it over and over and again. That's a public safety issue, we want them off the street. And make sure they show up in court. We're using the jail for other things. I mean, and I understand. I mean, you know, for a period of time, because of staffing, and then prior to that, because of COVID, I only accepted certain inmates. Because I had to take care of my staff. My thought was, you know what? If we have no staff, we have no jail. and the outrage, because agencies were used to, hey, if it's an arrestable offense, I feel like arresting them, bringing them to the jail. Well, I mean, that's good. I was that guy when I was on the road. But you can write a summons and accomplish the same thing. Now, I will say, there are some people that a warning by the police, for most of us, would be a deterrent. A summons by the police would, in most cases, be a deterrent. And I will say, arrest, in most cases, would be a deterrent. For some people, none of those care. You know, that's their life, you know. For whatever reason, whether it's mental illness, substance use, or just their life, they're in there. But we use the jail just to get people off the street. And again, it kind of goes back to, what are we doing to keep the people from going into the jail? A very well-to-do legislature, about 10 years ago, somebody came to me and said, hey, what can we do? Because their legislator had a kid that had some issues, mental health issues. Good kid, just had some mental health issues. Unfortunately, he committed a crime, he broke a window. Not the crime of a century, but it's a arrestable offense. And he got brought in, and what the kid learned was, oh, I get to hang with some gangbangers and stuff like that. Well, my question was, why couldn't we have headed him off before he actually got into the system? You know, and the answer is, we don't have the staff. We don't have the resources. You know, you mentioned about social workers. I don't know what it is now, but I will tell you, in 19, when I sat on a committee for a couple of senators on mental illness, social workers, if you're a social worker in Florida and you try to come into Maine and get licensed as a social worker, somehow Maine has become an elitist state where they make you jump through a bunch of hoops. And sometimes in law enforcement certifications, we feel the same way. But the reality is, you know, there's not a lot of social workers. The living room, when they opened up, great idea, it's gonna be open 24/7. For a year, almost a year, they were only open 7A to 7P because they couldn't get the staff there, you know? I often catch myself by talking about having forensic beds with the media, and I stop short of saying, because we can build all the buildings we want for forensic beds to deal with mental illness, but if you can't staff them, what have you accomplished, you know? And I think there's a huge staffing issue with providing these services. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things we could do if everything lined up and the moon and the planets lined up. And we constantly, in a pre-COVID world, we were thinking about, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? Might be able to, you know, coordinate, consolidate and stuff. Right now, we're just survival mode. Survival mode. And I, as I told one person last week, the feds want our jail to house their inmates. DA's office wants it to sentence people. The judges want it to sentence people. Police departments want it because they're short of staff, and guess what? They drop them off at our doorstep. You know, we can go out and get back at, and take care of what the town's expectations are of their police department. So we all talk, sometimes we all just rant, probably don't get a lot accomplished, but I think the jail needs to start being used as what it was intended for, and it's public safety, and to ensure that that person shows up in court. But that's gotta start at the town level, because I was getting calls, you know, from people in various towns, how come my police department can't bring arrests in? It's like, trying to save my people, trying to save my people.
There's another part to that. 90% of the people that are in his jail are pre-trial. They haven't even got to trial yet. 90%.
Because of the system being backlogged?
Yeah. This is a backlog.
And it used to be a third were sentenced, and 2/3 waiting for trials, but again, COVID shut everything down, so it's kind of like a big machine, you gotta get running.
The other thing is that jails have become the public service of last resort.
And emergency rooms. I didn't say this earlier, congratulations on the Triple Crown. And, you know, of all the teams we met so far, thank you, because you guys are putting your lives at risk, and, you know, that's a tremendous, tremendous benefit to the community. So thank you all for what you guys do.
We appreciate
Coming
it.
here so late,
The
too.
guys behind me that make it happen, and the guys and gals that are out on the street and down at the Cumberland County Jail today, that, I mean, they are the glue that's held us together. And, you know, I get to ride their coattails, but they do humans well. So thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Manager, I'll hand it over
Thank you,
to
Sheriff.
you to dismiss whomever.
Well, I think the last item on the agenda for this evening is any further discussion that the committee has, as we're lining ourselves up for maybe the last meeting on January 21st. And is there anything that you need staff to look into, to deliver to you at this time? Or I will open it and just, you can email us anytime in the next month, too. We'd be happy to respond to the email. But I just want to make sure that going into the 21st, if that's the desire for the last meeting, we have everything necessary for you to make a recommendation that evening.
So this group feel you have everything, and even if there is something that pops up, you can always email it, but
I just have a question in terms of, at what point, we're doing, municipalities are doing their budgets right now, and at what point do you communicate to the towns as to what the increase is going to be and what we plug into? Is it sort of before February, or?
Well, they'll start hounding me around February. If any indication was last year. No, we are hoping we're bouncing ideas around what Mondays to meet, and right now, we might be meeting the third Monday of February. I'm away the second Monday of February, so the budget could go to the commissioners on the third Monday, which then we would be able to tell the towns. That would be a whole month ahead of what we did this past year. I think it was March 19th, we did the approval with the commissioners. This would be, I think, February 18th or 19th.
Terrific.
And I think I think the town managers would appreciate that.
One thing that we won't do at the end, I had a few ask for a rough number on that, and I'd really like to avoid doing that, because there's always the danger, if we give them a rough number, that they accidentally keep using that number,
and then they get mad when it gets higher. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
we saw at least one town.
I had one town last Friday ask me. They're like, we hear your proposal right now is blah, blah, blah. We're gonna just stick that in for the placeholder. I'm like, I wouldn't.
I had plans against that, yes.
Really bad happens.
Yeah.
Right there.
Way too early.
Yeah.
It's only the 1st of December here.
Yep. All right. Well, good. Well,
But from this point in, does it typically change much? No. So, I mean, these are public meetings. People, I mean, town managers, if they're paying, if they wanted to get an idea, they could just watch what we've been talking about, but.
Well, what Alex and I will do over the next 30 days, we continue to look at the revenues and see whether we can tweak anything there. We also watch if there's anything trending a little different than what we saw 60 days ago when we started putting this budget together. We also need to go back to the jail budget. And because that right now is not a budget that is completely pinned down. And so we will continue to look at the jail budget right up until the 21st of January. And we will bring you along the way if there's any changes in the budget, so that you're just not hit with it on the 21st. I'm sorry, Alex, I think I interrupted you.
No, I hate the fact that I'm about to speak, because we're all on the phone. The way this works, and the really critical thing that comes out in January, is the new state equalized pay valuation will come out. And it's that change in valuation town by town that oftentimes can have as big or even bigger impact on what they get next year than our budget increase. So if a town, say if the average increase for towns is 10% 1 year over the other for the state equalized valuation, i.e. the entire county goes up 10% on valuation, but one town goes up 0% and another town goes up 20%. That town that went up 20% is gonna see a very big hit. The town that went up 0% could see nothing. And so that's what causes a lot of variability sometimes, which is one of the reasons why we really don't wanna say too much until that comes out, because that can sometimes be a bigger impact than anything here. The town has had a valuation go through the roof. That makes it very big.
So what time period is that being measured again? The latest valuation?
It is the state equalized valuation for the calendar year. So we'll be waiting in January with bated breath for the state equalized valuation for calendar year 2024 to come out. And that's a weighted average of the past 3 years, I believe. How they get to the number, I have no idea.
That's the voodoo part of it.
Those numbers have really been going through the roof.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so if it goes up 15%, countywide, and your town goes up 15%, boom, everything's even. But because those numbers have been so big, it's also causing massive swings within the towns. It's,
Yeah, we'd like a different method. Take a listen.
yeah, there is.
And Falmouth probably would
I don't know
too.
what
There's
that
some
would be.
brilliant mind behind it, and the rest of us are.
Valuation really doesn't matter on an individual town basis, because what you're really looking for is your increased spending. So if you hold your spending flat, you don't care what the valuation is, because it doesn't affect anybody. But when you throw 20 communities into the mix, and valuation is different on one end, on another end, that's when you see the disparities, because it's not the spending on the county side. You know, your spending goes up 2 or 3%, but if you have, I got all waterfront property in Harpswell, and they just drive it to them, and all the communities in the inland don't have any change in the state valuation. The biggest change is on the Harpswell community.
Even if you have a 0% budget increase,
Yep.
the towns
It'll
that
just
were
be-
above the average would actually still see an increase, and towns that were below the average would see a decrease. And that's the tricky part of the numbers, just,
Well, that's what I've said to our town manager and our town tax assessor. I said, when we do our revaluation, we need to do our best to hold our spending as close to zero as possible, so that people can see that it's not
right,
the spending, it's the change in the valuation of the property.
right. And that'll be your internal valuation as opposed to the state equalized. which
Right,
one completely
yes, which are
separate.
two different numbers, and that's where school funding comes in,
Yes.
which is a subject for another day.
Yes. That's it.
Complex.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
So the January 21st meeting,
Yes,
is it still going to be a meeting that I can Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
at 5.
Right.
About 5. All right. I have a
It will be
motion.
snowing where you are.
Huh?
It will be snowing where you are.
We got a long road.
I'll get an early round in that day.
Yeah.
It'll be on the big screen, just one. So,
So we'll just smile bright. I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? We are out of here at 7:59. Thank you all.
thank you all. That was a marathon.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah. We got it done. One less meeting.